Everybody talks about some fateful day. I guess that this was mine. I may be here to tell some kind of story, but I think it's gonna take a little time. That's alright. See him rocking in a cradle down a hall somewhere, and I am lost inside a dream. Maybe I am falling, maybe I am flying, but I know if I am crying, she's holding me. And then the sky broke up, and then the rain came down, and it washed away everything on the ground. Wash it away, wash it away, wash it away. Got that bottle filled with lightning and rain. She keeps calling out for someone, but she's riding on a train, riding on the ghost train. Well, she keeps on riding. She's gonna keep on riding. Mama, keep on riding. Some leave in the afternoon. Some trains they leave here right on time. Some they just leave too soon. Way too soon. I'm gonna keep on. That bottle filled with lightning and rain. He keeps calling out for someone, but she's riding on a train, riding on the ghost train. Yeah, she keeps on riding. And then the rain came down and washed away everything. She keeps on riding.
Hello, hello. Hey, everybody. I hate to break up the conversation, but would you guys start making your way over here and find a seat? That would be great. We're live streaming tonight, so we kind of want to start somewhat on time for the folks at home. So just start walking this way. Start walking this way. Let me make the announcement one more time. Hey, y'all, if you could start making your way over here to the chairs, that would be great. We're going to get started here in just a second. Come on over. Hey, how's it going? Hey, Mr. Scott. Who's going to be brave enough to sit on these front rows? Who is going to do it? Anyone? There's a lot of chairs right over here if you're looking for a place. I know, right? All right. So, is the live stream going? It's live, so it's live now, so nobody say any bad words. Just kidding. Am I? Hey, there's a lot of chairs up here. I would love it if y'all in the back want to come sit over here because there's a big empty spot. Anyway, yeah. Somebody, yes, I knew it. Thank you, guys. So I want to just say welcome to Northwind Manor. We're so glad that all of you guys could be here. My name is Andrew Peterson. I've met quite a few of you guys over the years. And I want to quickly tell you a little bit about this place. So the Rabbit Room is a ministry that we started probably 16 years ago, something like that, in response to what I saw was a need for artists in community living life together. People who are Christians specifically, I recognized that there was a whole lot of a life that I was able to live that was only possible because of the rich community here in Nashville, and to be able to work out big ideas and songs and just to kind of do life together with people. And I recognized after several years of being in Nashville that my music was a whole lot better because I'd been hanging out with songwriters who were a whole lot better than I was. But bigger than that, my life was a whole lot better because I had made lots and lots of friends, and those friendships are going to outlast any of the songs that we write, and that felt significant to me. So I ended up going to England for the first time, went to the Eagle and Child in Oxford, where Lewis and Tolkien and their buddies used to have their beer and talk about their books, and I recognized in a much less intelligent way our community kind of like harmonized a little bit with what those guys were doing, because this was this group of guys who were just friends, and they liked some of the same stuff, and they were writers, and they hung out with each other, and that friendship ended up kind of bubbling over and giving birth to the Lord of the Rings and the Narnia books and a whole lot of really good work. But again, more importantly, that there were friendships that were born. And so I was like, that's kind of like Nashville, only we're not nearly as smart. And so the name of the back room of the pub was the Rabbit Room. And so I bought the domain name rabbitroom.com without having any idea what it was going to be. But it was but I had this kind of like sense that there was something to it. And so my dream was that there would be a building like this, and it would be a place where people could hang out with each other and write together, and we could it would be a blessing to the community. There'd be a bookstore and a pub maybe and a coffee house and all kinds of cool stuff. And then, 16, 17 years ago, you realize that those things cost a fortune. And so what doesn't cost a fortune 16 years ago is Blogspot. And so I started a blog called The Rabbit Room, and I had, over the years, met all these wonderful friends who were writers, who were kind of like cared about some of the same things. And so I sent some emails to some people. I sent one to my brother, Pete, who lived in Florida at the time, who I knew was a writer. I sent an email to a guy named Jonathan Rogers, who is a wonderful writer. I sent an email to Jason Gray, and there were like probably 7 or 8 people. And one of those people was this guy that I just met named Russ Ramsey. And Russ was a pastor in Kansas City at the time. And I met Russ in a pretty cool way because I was singing at the Moody Pastors Conference in Chicago all those many years ago. What year was that, Russ? Do you remember? It would have been 2006 or 7. Okay, so I don't know. I'm bad at math, so I don't know how many years ago that is, but it's a long time ago. So anyway, it's in downtown Chicago, and I came downstairs and I had finished singing whatever I was going to do, and I had this window of time to kill, And this guy walks up to me and says, hey, my name's Russ. And I was like, hey, I'm Andrew. And he goes, do you like Van Gogh? And I said, yeah. And he was like, I'm about to get a cab to the Chicago Art Institute. Is that what it's called? And I'm just going to go look at some Van Goghs. You want to go? And so I hopped in the cab with this dude that I'd never met. And we talked the whole time, and we went and walked through the museum, and Russ just told me about the paintings. And I will never forget that day. It was the beginning of a beautiful friendship. So anyway, we got to know each other. I went and stayed at his house in Kansas City one time, and I knew that Russ was a good writer. And so I said, you want to come write on this crazy blog idea called The Rabbit Room? And so he was here from the very beginning. So it feels very fitting that after all these years, the community, thank the Lord, helped us to build the house finally. And we were able to make this place as a gathering point and a place for hospitality and conversation, and hopefully a blessing to Nashville and beyond. And very thankful that you guys are here, and to the Lord for providing this space for us. So I'm not going to bore you, but I am going to play. Russ asked me to do a couple songs, and then I'm going to turn it over to him. This is a song that I thought of immediately when I read Russ's book. I thought I would play this tonight. I wrote it. I won't say a whole lot about it. I'll just say that I wrote it after a wedding when I realized that I used to hate weddings just because it's just a hassle. You know, it's like buying the gift and going to the thing and Evites and all the thing. And then I went to this, something changed in my heart, and I realized that now I love getting wedding invitations. And I always try to sit on the inside aisle so that I can see the bride and the groom. You know, when she arrives at the back, I always want to see who starts crying first, you know. And it's always me. Because I learned to see weddings through the lens of the gospel as this wonderful sermon that gets preached to us about the wedding supper of the Lamb. And so that kind of gave me the idea for this song. Here we go. So you're sitting at the movies, you're watching how the story finds a way. And you've seen it all before, still you love to see the hero save the day. It's a window in the world, a little glimpse of all the goodness getting through. And all along the way the days are made, little moments of truth. Oh, and every Sunday morning you can see the people standing in a line. They're so hungry for some mercy, for a taste of the communion bread and wine. It's a window in the world, a little glimpse of all the goodness getting through. And all along the way the days are made, little moments of truth. It's the way the clouds are burning from the angle of the light, as the earth is slowly turning you to meet it. And you're watching at your window at the ending of the night. It's as plain as day, so any fool could see. It's a window in the world. I can see the groom is waiting. He's watching for the moment she appears. And they are laying down their lives for love, and love is laying waste to all my fears. It's a window in the world, a little portal where you get a better view. And the wonder of it all is all you need to see the goodness getting through. And all along the way the days are made of little moments. All along the way the road is paved with little moments of truth. Thank you. So let me do this one really quick. This is a song I wanted to do because Russ and I share an affection for the music of Rich Mullins. And he's an Indiana boy, and I thought I'd do a Rich Mullins song. So I was trying to think of which Rich song I would do, and this one came to mind because I feel like I thought it would be an attempt at doing something similar to what you did with your book. This is one of the more inscrutable Rich Mullins songs. It's a lyric that is, there's a lot going on in the lyric. It took me 25 listens before I began to unpeel what he was actually getting at. So I thought, since many of you have probably never heard this song before, I'm going to tell you about it, and then I'm going to play it, and you will appreciate the art that's hanging on the wall more because I explained it to you, right? See? I wish you were doing this because you would do it a lot better than me. But really quick, so this is a song called The Land of My Sojourn. It's an amazing lyric. It's a little more poetic than even Rich would usually do. But the first verse says, the coal trucks come running with their bellies full of coal, with their big wheels a-humming down this road that lies open like the soul of a woman who hid the spies that were looking for the land of the milk and the honey. And this road, she is a woman. She was made from a rib cut from the sides of these mountains, like these great sleeping atoms who are lonely even here in paradise. And he goes on. So he's got this metaphor of these mountains that he's driving through and how even the mountains were lonely. But we cut from the mountains this rib that we call a road so that there could be community and the mountain would not be alone. Isn't that an amazing, complicated metaphor that's happening there, right? It really is. But just wait, because the next verse is kind of a verse about the immigrants and America and all this stuff, and it closes with this picture of the New Jersey casinos. It says, on the New Jersey shoreline, in the greed and the glitter of those high-tech casinos, all those, and the greed and the glitter of those high-tech casinos, but some mendicants wander into a cathedral, and they stoop in the silence, and there their prayers are still whispered. So in all the chaos of the New Jersey casinos, where you feel like there is no hope and everything is gross, there are these these beggars wander into a cathedral and whisper these prayers. So there's still grace happening in the middle. Isn't that amazing? He also used the word mendicant in a song. But that's not the weirdest word that he uses in the song. It's coming. So in the last verse, which is my favorite verse, does anybody know the word I'm talking about? We'll get there. So in the last verse, I performed this song for a few years, and then another friend pointed out what was going on. So I'm just going to tell you. In the last verse of the song, it says, down the brown brick spine of some dirty blind alley, all those drain pipes are dripping out the last sons of thunder, while off in the distance, the smokestacks keep belching back this city's best answer. He used the word belch in a song. And mendicant. But the picture is of the last sons of thunder is the last drops of rain. And they're dripping down the drain pipe into the gutter, the dirty, blind alley of the city. God's grace finding its way to the darkest, dirtiest part of the city. And meanwhile, off in the distance, the smokestacks keep belching back this city's best answer. So the best we have to offer is like a smokestack spewing things into the heavens, and God's grace rains down and drips into the dirtiest. Isn't that amazing? People do not write songs like that anymore in Christian music. So I'm going to play that song with now that I've kind of docented the song for you. Maybe you'll appreciate it more. And the coal trucks come a-running with their bellies full of coal, and their big wheels a-humming down this road that lies open like the soul of a woman who hid the spies that were looking for the land of the milk and the honey. And this road, she is a woman. She was made from a rib cut from the sides of these mountains, or these great sleeping atoms who are lonely even here in paradise, lonely for somebody to kiss them, and I'll sing my song. Yes, I'll sing my song in the land of my sojourn. And the lady in the harbor, she still holds her torch out to those huddled masses who are yearning for a freedom that still eludes them. The immigrants' children see their brightest dreams shattered.
Here on the New Jersey shoreline, in the greed and the glitter of those high-tech casinos, but some mendicants wander into a cathedral, and they stoop in the silence, and there their prayers are still whispered, and I'll sing their song. Yes, I'll sing their song in the land of my sojourn. Nobody tells you when you get born here how much you'll come to love it and how you'll never be long here. So I'll call you my country, but I'll be lonely for my home. I wish that I could take you there with me. And down the brown brick spine of some dirty blind alley, all those drain pipes are dripping out the last sons of thunder, while off in the distance the smokestacks keep belching back this city's best answer. But the countryside is parked with all of those mail pouch posters thrown up on rotting sideboards of these run-down stables, like the one that Christ was born in when the old world started dying and the new world started coming on. And I'll sing his song. Yes, I'll sing his song in the land of my sojourn. Yes, I'll sing your song in the land of my sojourn.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I keep thinking that somebody will use that in praise and worship one Sunday morning in church, but I just don't know if it's singable. So I want to introduce my two good friends, Russ Ramsey and Russell Moore. I'm so thankful that they are here. Russell's going to interview Russ and kind of talk about the book a little bit. I think there's going to be some time for Q&A at the end for you guys, but I just want to say quickly, I found this book at a used bookstore. It's called Great Pictures Described by Great Writers. And I wrote on the inside that if Russ had been around 100 years ago, he would have been in this book. I'm really thankful for your writing and the way you've stewarded your gift, and glad to be your friend. So y'all please welcome Mr. Russ Ramsey.
Thanks for this, Andrew.
Well, good evening. It's already been a good time together, and basically an exciting day. Russ,
Yes.
the book releases officially tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow, yep.
Yeah. When most people think artistic imagination, they usually don't think Presbyterian pastor. Those things usually don't go together,
Yes.
but they do with you. And I'm wondering, how did that happen? I mean, how did you start getting interested in art?
Well, I had actually, I'm going to move for a second because I got to show you something. There. That's how I got interested in art. These are my art teachers from middle school and high school. Let's see, I guess what would be on my left would be Steve and Nancy Byer. They were my middle school art teachers. And then that's Kathy Ferguson there on the end, on the right, who was my high school art teacher. And believers, all of them, and people, small town Indiana, I grew up in kind of farm country and public school. And these teachers just really instilled in us a curiosity about art. They were artists themselves, but also art teachers, and they gave us just good advice over the years. I remember Steve and Nancy in middle school. Sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Byer. I think they're watching. Sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Byer. I remember one of the things that Mr. Byer did was we had a demerit system in middle school where you get a pink slip for doing bad things. And he gave pink slips for kids who would take the name of the Lord in vain in his class. And, and you know, in middle school, in art class, one of the impressions that left on me was that there was a connection between the sacred and art. And I didn't know how to connect the dot much further than that, other than my art teacher cared about the sanctity of the Lord's name. And so that was formative for me as a kid. And then Kathy Ferguson, she gave us advice as high school students. She said, if you want to have a lifelong relationship with art, then just find an artist that you connect with. And for me, that was Van Gogh at first, and then later Rembrandt. And she said, find an artist that you just like, and just pay attention to them for the rest of your life. And over time, you'll get to know them really well, and they will introduce you to their colleagues, to their mentors, to the people who inspired them. You will come to know just by walking through museums and reading the plaque on the wall next to the painting. You'll come to learn of painters who came along or artists who came along later who were inspired by them. And over time, you will develop this deepening vocabulary and understanding of art, and that has been the case for me. It's been something that has just been there, and it was there before a sense of call to ministry, and so my sense of call to become a pastor had kind of foundationally under it this love for creativity and the arts and beauty. And so that's really kind of how that is the desire to connect with beauty and transcendence and glory preceded the part of the calling that would be, you know, that would move me into also like more heady and academic stuff.
So it's not likely that they would have been thinking back there in middle school, somebody in this room is going to be writing a book on art and the artistic imagination. That probably was not on their minds at the time.
Well, I don't know if it was or not, but I know that that one of the things that was clear for me as an adult now is that there was very much a desire for their instruction to be formative. And so it wasn't just, this is the next art project we're going to make. This is, you know, here, get yourself a lump of clay and make an ashtray for your dad. You know, it was we're going to help you learn to see things that you can't unsee, you know, and you know, I remember like even with Miss Ferguson, what I remember about her, she loved Georgia O'Keeffe, she loved Frank Lloyd Wright, and it kind of put those two artists in a category where I felt like, okay, they've earned my respect without me knowing anything about them, just by nature of how much she loved them, and I think about that with instruction, and I think about as somebody who teaches now, that I don't think, like I preach a sermon a week, and I don't think that, and a lot of folks in my church are here, I don't think they remember what I say in my sermons, and I find no fault in that, because I think people remember a handful of things that a preacher says, but I think most of what we remember is we remember a tune. We remember a theme and a posture toward them and toward Scripture that, and every once in a while, you know, 3 points that all start with the same letter will break through. But yeah, I kind of ran out of runway on that question, Russ.
Well, a couple of us were talking beforehand, and a person said to me, you can almost see this book cultivating in Russ for like the last 10 years, and started talking about different ways that this has shown up. I was thinking about you were doing, even on Instagram, putting up paintings and just in that very short way, teaching people how to appreciate them. So did this person see that right? Is this something that's been kind of in the making for a long time in your life?
It has been. It's an insatiable curiosity for me. But what he's referring to is Art Wednesday. If you follow me on social media, every Wednesday I devote my social media feed to some theme related to art. And over the course of the day, I'll post about 9 paintings that'll either be by the same artist, or they'll all be paintings that were stolen at some point and never recovered, or whatever. But every week, and I'm in my 3rd year of doing it every week, and it's something that's actually Art Wednesday is one of the ways that I learn about art. So I have, because it forces me to create these kind of installments of information, and a lot of it is stuff I don't know when I go into it. I'll get an idea, and I'll think, I want to learn more about that, and make myself do an Art Wednesday on it. But yeah, this has been in the development for a long time. The Rabbit Room here has a conference every year called Hutchmoot, and a number of years ago, I usually speak at that conference, and one of my breakout sessions was I was going to tell a story about art. And it was the title chapter for this book, Rembrandt is in the Wind, and it's the story of an art heist in Boston where Rembrandt's Storm on the Sea of Galilee was stolen in 1990, actually right about this time. It was St. Patrick's Day of 1990, and 13, how many other pieces, Hannah, were taken along with that? You wrote a series of poems, 13 total, and nothing has been seen or heard of any of these works since. In spite of a $5 million reward for their return. So I think they're gone. But I wrote that essay and delivered it as a talk and did a PowerPoint presentation with it as I did, and loved it. And so the next year I did another one and then another one, and those became chapters in this book. There's just kind of this I want to know these stories. Yeah.
Well, Rembrandt is in the Wind. The title is really arresting and interesting from the very beginning. Why did you choose that as the title?
It has a double meaning. In the world of criminology, for something to be in the wind means it's missing, or for somebody to be in the wind means you can't find them. Nobody knows where they are, and so that Rembrandt painting is in the wind in that sense of the word. But also in the painting, it's the painting of the Storm on the Sea of Galilee, which is it's on the cover, but I'm just going to leave my art teachers up for now. Rembrandt painted himself into that painting, and he is the person in the middle of the boat. He's got his hand on his hat, he's holding onto a rope, and he's the one who's looking at the viewer. So Rembrandt is breaking the fourth wall. And when you look at a painting, and whenever they're, in old paintings in particular, if there's somebody in the painting who's looking out at the viewer, chances are good it's the artist. And what he's doing is he's drawing you into the scene with him as he's experiencing it. And so Rembrandt is literally in the storm. He's in the wind in the painting because he painted himself into it. And so that's the double meaning. And also I like I like the lyrical quality of it. I like the way it sounds. I feel like Rembrandt is in the Wind is a pleasant thing to say and an intriguing thing to read. And that just is what it is, you know?
Yeah. One of the things that I really liked about reading the galleys of this several months ago, I guess it was now, is that a lot of books that deal with this subject kind of assume that people are already really well-versed in terms of art. Yeah. Or they're books that sort of come in and speak really simplistically, so anybody who does know art will just kind of tune it out. You managed to do neither of those two things. I managed to come in, and I think somebody who's kind of apprehensive about art will read this book and really get into it, and somebody who's been, like you, kind of from middle school on, interested in art, also will be captivated by it. Was that intentional? How did you manage to do that and speak to both of those artists?
I'm glad that that's the response you've had to it, because one of the things that I wanted to do with this book is I wanted to try to tear down some of the wall of apprehension and intimidation that people feel when they talk about the subject of art. Because I would have this experience when I would even talk about the idea for this book, is that as soon as I would say the word art or maybe art history, I would start to see a garage door start to close on people's eyes. Like in those shows where a buddy gets shot in war and his friend's over him trying to keep him alive, and he's like, "Don't you die on me, don't you die on me." That's the experience I would have trying to describe this book to people and seeing them start to, and I'm like, no, stay with me. It really is a good idea. And And so I really wanted to write a book that would just be storytelling, because everybody can connect with storytelling, and hope that I could do it in a way that after you've read the book, you're not intimidated by art anymore. And that it's very valid to say, some art I don't get, and I don't need to get, and I may never get, It's a very valid form of art criticism to walk up to a painting and look at it and say, I like this one, And it's equally valid to walk up to a painting and say, I don't get this one at all, Now, there's more you can do, but that's not invalid. And I think a lot of people, I was trying to help get people over the hurdle, and myself as well. Because I've some of the things I wrote about in the book, some of the artists that I wrote about, was because I wanted to connect with them, and I didn't know anything about them. And so I made myself write a chapter about them.
How did you organize the book?
I organized the book by, I wrote about 4 of these as talks, and when I started to realize there's a book here, I started to think about 10 chapters and thinking, okay, who else would I want to include? And then I just kind of arranged them chronologically so there'd be at least a little bit of a art history, aspect to it. And then I wrote the first chapter last, which just between us is not my favorite chapter in the book, but it's preamble. I wanted to write a chapter that would sort of set up the rest of the book, but every chapter is kind of a standalone. You could read chapter 7, and it won't matter if you've read chapter 4, because chapter 7 is its own story about its own painting or its own statue and its own artist. And so really, I chose them based on artists that I just wanted to get to know, and had a fascination with myself, because I felt like, you can tell when a writer loves the subject matter they're writing about. And so I started with the handful of ones that I knew I gotta write about these, or these stories, and just kind of built it from there. I hope it's not the last one.
There are some Christian traditions that are, from the very beginning, really embodied with art. And then there are other Christian traditions that are a little nervous about visual art because, of course, there's so many warnings in the Old Testament about images as opposed to word. One of the things I've noticed being in your church building where your church meets is that you have pulpit here centrally, the word. You also have art around on either side of this. How do you see that? What's sort of the way that art intersects with Christianity?
Yeah. Well, I think art is an incredible biblical literacy tool and we have a ton of children in our church. I think 40% of our congregation is under the age of 11. It's awesome. It's a hot mess, and it's great. And part of it for me is I want these images of biblical scenes in our church so that little eyes will look upon them and wonder. And we have the Incredulity of St. Thomas by Caravaggio, which is the painting of, I'm sure you've seen it. It's 4 men kind of huddled together, and Jesus is putting Thomas's finger into the wound in his side. And that's on display in the back of our sanctuary, and I kind of want kids to look at it because it's a little grotesque, and I would imagine kids would feel like they're almost getting away with something by seeing it. And yet, I want them to wonder what's happening in that painting, because there's going to come a point in their lives when they're going to say, unless I can see it and touch it, you're asking me to believe something and accept something that is beyond what I'm capable of right now. And I want them to know that they're not alone. Now, a related question has to do with like images of God in church. And I'm kind of touchy about that. I'm not super comfortable with the Sistine Chapel, with the depiction of God and the creation of Adam, painting. I'm very at ease with depictions of the incarnate Jesus, because the second command is a command against putting up images for the sake of worshiping them. But we also have in Scripture descriptions of what Jesus looked like, and one of the things that runs through is that there wasn't anything in his physical description that would inspire a person to worship him. And so to have renderings of the incarnate Lord taken from the pages of Scripture, I think these are things that we're imagining in our minds anyway. And there are things that we know to be true about what he must have been like. And so I'll never put a picture up in our church of a painting of God the Father. But if it's of the incarnate Christ, I want people to go into those scenes and imagine them, and artists help us do that.
Do you think with reading, a lot of times parents will say, my kids are reading the schlocky books that aren't very good. And the advice that most of us give is, if they're reading, encourage that, and you can sort of build out from whatever they're interested in towards something better. Is that the case with art? If you've got somebody who is really into bad art, kitschy, bad art, can you build from that out to something better, or does that just have to go before you can start to appreciate it?
Oh, man, what a great question. I had somebody ask me the other day, they said, okay, so as a Christian, how should I think about making good Christian art? And I said, don't try to make Christian art. Try to make honest art, but don't try to make Christian art, because it won't be honest. Because you'll be trying to do something where you're dividing. Oftentimes what happens, you end up trying to divide the impact of what it is that you're trying to show from the reality of the human experience of living in a broken and fallen world. And so, so for me, the question is, okay, good art or bad art can be a very subjective thing. But honest art and dishonest art is less subjective. And I feel like that's kind of the question of is the art that you're drawn to telling you something true? And I don't. When you walk into a Christian bookstore, if they still exist, there are a few of them, or you search Christian art, just Google Christian art. It's a mess. It's and you look at it and you just think, how is this helping anybody? And I'm not saying that everything needs to be like foreboding and morose and life is tough, but yet hope exists because of suffering, and truth exists because of corruption and falsehood. And as Christians, aiming for telling the truth is a far more worthy endeavor than trying to just represent Christianity as a religion in a painting. And but I think also, I don't know, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt that if they're really drawn to bad art, there's something in them that knows it's bad art and might be a little bit relieved for somebody to point out that it's bad art. Not always, but sometimes. That's the optimism in me.
Well, one of the things I wanted you to do to sort of give people a taste of the book is to walk us through a piece of art. And so when I asked you that by text, you said, well, yeah, I have Rembrandt's Prodigal Son in my car. Yeah. Which at first I thought, is this like, yeah, I've got Rembrandt's Prodigal Son in my car. It's day up. And then I realized, no, I think he genuinely means that.
And it was this. It was this what I had in my car. It was this giant painting. Now, I don't just...
You don't keep that like a St. Christopher all the time in your car.
I don't keep that in my car, okay. But a guy in our church happened to give me that, and so I was transporting. But yeah, I'd love to do it. So this is, I don't know how well y'all are going to be able to see this, but it's Rembrandt's Return of the Prodigal Son. Henry Nouwen wrote a book called The Return of the Prodigal Son, which is a meditation on this particular painting. And that book, I think, was a pretty significant gateway into kind of the nickel dropping for me that I can engage with art by way of story. Because that's what that book, he does that at length in that book. But this is a good example of I have an Art Wednesday that's kind of about what I'm going to say right now, and that is, when you walk up to a painting, you may not know it, but if the artist is, if you're in capable hands with that artist, they're working you. They're working you from the moment you walk up to the painting. And one of the ways they're working you is they're making you look at it in a particular sequence. And you don't ever know it. You just walk up to this painting, and the first thing your eye goes to is the father and the prodigal son there. And the reason is because of the light and the dark, is that your eye is just going to be drawn to, this is a painting of a man embracing another man who looks destitute. And the title tells us who these people are. But then what this painting does is you have this, and your eye will travel to what's next. And what is next in the painting? Those of you who can see it. Anybody? This guy, right? And again, it's using the light and the darkness to take your eye. And so you go from here and you go over to here and you're looking back down here. And as your eye travels back this way, you catch this guy. And then as you catch him, you're like, wait, there's another one over here. And then if you have a good reproduction, you can barely see it, but there's a person standing back here in the shadow. And what Rembrandt has done in this painting is he's given us, let me just tell you what he's given us in this painting. He's given us a picture of the prodigal son being embraced by his father when he's returned. That's what's on the surface. What he's also given us is the distance and the indignation of the elder brother who stands taller than everybody, who has his arms folded across. He's looking down. And in the process of doing that, you see, okay, here's nothing but a loving embrace from the father, from the younger son, the prodigal son, nothing but a posture of receiving, because what else can he do? And then you have the anger and the aloofness over here, but in the process of following then his gaze back, you see this guy who's kind of sitting and wondering what's happening. And then you have this person who's in the doorway, so they're not quite in the scene, but they're watching what's happening. And then way back here in the shadow, you have this person who's even further back. And this is where everybody is with the gospel of Jesus Christ, right? I mean, everybody is either in a posture of just receiving the mercy of Christ because they have nothing else to give, or they're looking down on everybody who's receiving that kind of favor because they feel that God owes them something, or they're curious and they're contemplative, or they're standing in the doorway watching in kind of the back row but not really wanting to be in the mix. And then you have folks who are kind of watching from even a greater distance, and you don't even really know that they're curious, but they're there, and they move more into the light. And so it's kind of fascinating what Rembrandt has done here by just giving us this painting where he's captured a moment, but he's also told us a story, and he's also asking us the question in this painting, who are you in here? Who are you in this painting? And one of the things I love about it is, back to the question of Christian art, what would make this painting bad, if I can say that about a Rembrandt, is if all it was just this father and son. It would still be a beautiful painting, but it's so much more, because that's happening, and then here are the perspectives, here are the witnesses. It wouldn't be bad. Sorry, I take it back, Rembrandt. It wouldn't be bad. But it's so much better, right? Having the other people kind of in that mix. I love this painting.
Well, that's a real gift, to be able to do that, show people what's in here without making them feel like idiots, because you're seeing something, I never saw that before. And that's what the book is like. I mean, you're teaching people and showing people how to connect what they already know to look at this art. And I think that's one of the real gifts of this book. Is why I'm really excited that it's out. We have time for a few questions from folks out here. And so if you have a question for Russ, raise your hand and we'll...
Russ, just real quick, are you sure that Rembrandt and the Wind is a better title than Rembrandt in My Car?
Well,
the sequel.
Yeah. Lord willing, there will be a book 2. Yeah. And it'll be portable. Yeah. Yeah.
Other questions for us?
You got some American artists that are just getting to that part. How did you end up, I know you go chronologically, but how did you end up selecting the people that are in more recent times?
Yeah. Edward Hopper is one of the American artists that I found, and Henry Ossawa Tanner was one, and Lily Trotter was not. She was British. Really, it was through Edward Hopper is a painter who. Remember how I mentioned, like, find the artists that you like and pay attention to them? One of the things that happens is on your way to the Impressionism Gallery, you walk through the American Gallery, and you see Edward Hopper hanging on the wall, and you catch it out of the corner of your eye, and you think, huh. Or you go to the Chicago Art Institute, and you see Nighthawks, which is the kind of the Edward Hopper painting that everybody knows, the cafe at night that's all green, and there are 4 people around the bar. And I remember seeing Edward Hopper, his work, and being kind of struck by how lonely it felt. Because most of his paintings are of New York City, or a lot of them are, and he paints it as though that no one lives there, or just a couple people live there. And so I was fascinated by this, and I wanted to know, like, what is it about Edward Hopper that has given him kind of this keen ability to capture that lonesomeness that people feel, where they feel like there's a whole world happening around me, and yet I'm the only one here. Because I feel like that's a pretty universal feeling. And so that's what set me on the question. I was like, I'm going to write a chapter about Edward Hopper. Little did I know. Read the chapter. He wasn't. He was a problematic person. And everybody is, but that chapter in particular was one, as I was writing it, I thought, okay, I'm going to tell the truth about Edward Hopper and these paintings, but it's a hard truth. And yet, it's a story that explains why he was able to capture so much loneliness in his art. And it was because he wasn't trying to talk to other people necessarily about how other people are lonely, but it seems to be the world he lived in, even though he had other people in his world as well. Anyway, I don't want to give too much. That chapter, I will say this about the book, is there's no hagiography in this book. So hagiography is a book about a saint written to demonstrate why the person is a saint, and so it's all the good things. And I was committed to, okay, I'm going to write about these artists, but I'm not going to whitewash anything, and I'm not going to try to polish them smooth. And so several of the chapters, the one on Caravaggio, my word, what a rough story that guy had, and Edward Hopper are 2 chapters that stand out in my mind of things that the redemption in the story is partially in how the story that is told lands with a hollow thud, because it raises up in us something that says it's not supposed to be that way, and that's redemptive. But yeah, so it was being drawn to what I saw on the canvas that made me want to know more. Yeah.
Other things. Anybody else?
I want to tee you up because
Oh.
You shared with me once about how you decided to write this book. Because you've written lots of other books. How has the writing of this book and maybe even the selling of this book to your publisher been different than your other books?
Oh, like the publishing process? So getting back to that image of, don't you die on me, I kind of instinctively, I developed a kind of a sense that this is going to be a hard book to sell to a publisher, because I have a hard time describing it to friends. And yet I was confident that because I'd done some of these chapters as talks, which is really my preferred way to deliver the content. So if you're in charge of speaking engagements and you need somebody to come talk about art, let me be your guy. But I decided that rather than writing a book proposal and submitting it to a publisher, I was going to write the book. And Andrew Walgamuth, that's my agent right there, my literary agent. I didn't even really tell him I was doing it. I just wrote it, edited it. I called Mako Fujimura and said, would you write a foreword for this book? And he agreed to, and I got a bunch of endorsements from people. And I want to say something about the endorsements in a minute. And I got endorsements from Dr. Moore and from Karen Swallow Pryor and from some other people. from an artist named Mark Maggiore, who's not a Christian, but he's an amazing artist and an amazing follow on Instagram, a Frenchman who paints the American West, and it's amazing. But I wrote the whole thing, got Mako committed to write the foreword, got some endorsements, wrote a book proposal, edited it myself, bound it, and then I mailed it to Andrew, sight unseen, and just said, hey, I'm sending you something in the mail. And he opened it and he said, oh, it's this. And I'm like, yes, it's that. So it was a fun process. It was also a little bit of a, I knew that I wanted this book to exist in the world, and that if I needed to even self-publish it in some way, I knew the Rabbit Room would help me with it as well, that there was an option there that I knew that I would be able to get it out into the world somehow. But it was really fun to have Zondervan Reflective really kind of key on it, and they really did. Like they reached out to us pretty early and said, we want to have a conference call with you because we're interested in this in ways that were that felt very much more like they were just trying to fill a roster for books that needed to come out in the next year, but they had a vision for it. So that was a fun process, and a little bit of a swallow hard and send this to my agent and hope for the best. And it's exciting. It's fun. I did want to say something about the endorsements. So about half of the endorsements in the book are from visual artists here in Nashville. Or painters and artists that I know. A couple of them are here. Debbie Taylor is over there, and Wayne Brzezinka is over there. And that was very much on purpose, and their websites are attached in the blurbs in the book, because I really wanted to, Jimmy Abegg is one of the painters who did an endorsement for this book as well, Mark Maggiore, as I mentioned. But is because I have just such a deep admiration for living artists who are committed to this process, because I think it's a world that can be largely misunderstood by a whole lot of people, and requires a measure of confidence in a calling to create truth and beauty. That marches them forward. With Debbie Taylor over there, sorry, Debbie, I'm not meaning to single you out, but back in 1995, I got a job working with Charlie Peacock at the Art House, which is in Bellevue. And in the foyer, when you would walk in, there was a big painting on the wall that just every time I'd see it, I'd kind of have to stop and take it in a little bit and look at it, and I asked Charlie, where did this come from? And he said, Debbie Taylor painted that. And I said, who's Debbie Taylor? And so he told me who Debbie Taylor was. And again, that was something where I'm like, okay, I'm paying attention to Debbie Taylor now. But I have that image in that painting is kind of burned into my mind. One of the things I talk about in the book is that the joy of discovering art is that you develop over time your own personal collection. So tonight, many of you will add, if you haven't already, you'll add Rembrandt's Return of the Prodigal Son to your permanent collection, the one you carry in your mind and in your heart as a painting.
In your car.
Or in your car. As a painting that you know. But that's kind of how art works, right, is that we find things and we say, Monet's Water Lilies is in my permanent collection. It's up here, and and we start to develop these things. And that painting has been one of them, and it was just a pretty sweet honor to have Debbie write a blurb, and Wayne the same kind of thing. I'd seen some of his art on album covers and online and in displays in Nashville. It's fascinating, the stuff that he creates. It's kind of collage, commentary, beauty, grotesque. It's wonderful, and so that was a cold call. That was a Wayne, you don't know me, but can we get coffee, and can I ask you to write a blurb for my book, and can also you tell me everything about everything you do. It's funny, people will take that call, so I appreciate it.
Well, let me tell you one thing that Russ won't say. about himself, and that is any writer who's writing a book wants to get that out into the world. You want people to interact with it, and so there are a couple things that all of us can do. It's already
Tomorrow's the release date.
Yeah, tomorrow's the release date, but it's already #1 in what category on Amazon?
Art history.
Art history, yeah.
Come on.
That's great. That's great. One of the things that we can do is tomorrow, tonight you can do this too, but let everybody know whatever sort of social media presence that you have. There are a lot of people who won't know that a book is out until they see something like that, and they'll check it out. And so be sure to do that. And are there any other ways that they can get the word out that you can think of, Russ?
Yeah, I think if you would buy it through Amazon and leave a review. If you buy a book through, well, gosh. Yeah, but before you do, I really want people to buy books through local bookstores like Landmark and Logos and places like that. Rabbit Room, sorry. Or there's another one. I can't, tip of my tongue, rabbitroom.com. But yes, Claire, what's the...
If you buy it on Amazon, you should buy it from rabbit.com. But if you buy it from Amazon, you will get an email that says your shipment's on the way or your shipment arrived. That's when you click the thing that says review the shipment. Click review, and then you can post your review, and then your review gets to the top, and it gets all the likes, and it helps the book a lot.
Yeah.
So go through your email and leave a review. It makes a big difference.
So Amazon's all about algorithms, and when you purchase a book from Amazon and then write a review about it from Amazon, it helps the book appear in the people who bought this book like this book. Am I getting that right, Sean, at all?
I don't know. I just give it to you.
Okay. Yes. So any noise you can make about the book. Not just tomorrow would be a big deal because it's release day for tomorrow, but also, if you spend some time reading the book, and 3 months from now you're like, I'd like to say something about this online, I would love that, and I will share that as well, and it just kind of helps the book get some momentum behind it. So anything you want to do along those lines is greatly appreciated and helpful.
Well, thanks, Russ, for being with us tonight and sharing with us about the book, and I hope we all go out and do those things tonight and tomorrow.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. Andrew, do you want to close us out? Awesome. And when we're done here, we can head out onto the back porch. Feel free to hang out as long as you want. They're going to turn this room back around. But it's as beautiful a night as Nashville can make, which is saying something. And there's a gorgeous back porch out there. So feel free to linger, hang around. And thank you all so much for coming.
So I called an audible. Russ wanted me to close with a song, and I'm going to do one that I do not know all the words to. I can never remember them because there's too many. So I had to Google them. Let me. Yeah, the stand would be amazing. Thank you. So I co-wrote this song with a songwriter, and I'm not going to tell you who that songwriter was until after the song. And I can promise you that when I tell you the name of the person I co-wrote this song with, your response will be this. That's just how it's going to go. But I feel like it feels appropriate. So let's see how this goes. To all the poets I have known who saw the beauty in the commonplace, saw incarnation in a baby's face, and in a drop of rain the stars. When there was mud and blood and tears, you sang a song at night to calm our fears. You made a moment last 1,000 years. You are the poets I have known. To all the poets I have known, you built a kingdom out of sea and sand. You
conquered armies with a marching band. You carved a galaxy in stone. You built an altar out of bread and spent your soul to see the children fed. You wove your heart in every story read. Thank God for poets I have known. And you keep on dreaming when the dreams all fade, when friends desert me. You're the ones who stay to write the prayers when every prayer's been prayed. You are the poets I have known. You turned your tears into a string of pearls. You held your sorrow high to light the world. When I thought I was alone, in every man you saw the boy, the hidden heart the dark could not destroy. Stole past the dragons with a tale of joy. Thank God for poets I have known. 'Cause you keep on dreaming when the dreams all fade, when friends desert me. You're the ones who stay to write the prayers when every prayer been prayed. You walking wounded of my life, who bled compassion in the heat of strife. You stood between my heart and Satan's knife, with just the armor of a song. You are the heroes and the brave, who with a slender pen our passions save, and chisel epitaphs upon the graves of all the poets I have known.
Thank you. You ready? Gloria Gaither. Right? Isn't that the proper response? She's a beast. She wrote most of those lyrics. Hey, Russ, we're very proud of you. So excited about this book. I can't wait to hear stories about all the ways that it has touched people, and way to go. Yeah. Give him a big hand, yo guys. I should also say a quick thanks to Brandon for running sound, all the crew, the folks who were doing all the live stream stuff, Rachel for helping the kitchen, all the other people. You guys hang out, have some coffee, and enjoy your time here. Thanks.